Order at the March 29th, 2023 Environmental Management Commission meeting is called to order at, unfortunately, 9:22 with barely a quorum. Thank you guys for showing up. I don't know what all the hangups have been. Just to roll call at this time, Georgine Adams from District 9 is here. Rick Gaffney, wave Rick, from District 8. Lee McIntosh from District 6. And Melissa Cardwell from District 5. And we have a new member, which hopefully a couple more people will join us. Laura Casio was just approved by the council to join the EMC on behalf of District 2. So welcome, Laura. And know that unfortunately, this lack of quorum has only hit us one other time. So in general, we tend to be on time. But welcome. I'll give you the formal welcome in a bit. But just to try to move us along, I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting of February 28th. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Seeing none, everybody in favor of adopting those minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are approved. So we've waited long enough. I'll go the statement from the chair. First and foremost, I want to thank Rick Gaffney for his years of contribution to the Environmental Management Commission. I think this is the last official day that Rick can join us on the commission and be counted for quorum, unfortunately, because he's always here. Your contributions have been hard to categorize. I mean, basically, you take up half the minutes. Yes, a lot of passion. And I sincerely hope that you continue to follow us and jump in when you think comments are necessary, or if you'd like to see something on the agenda, feel free to let me know, because I very much appreciate the contributions you've made, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Next is Dee Fulton, who's off in the Philippines, I hope having fun. She represented, I should say, Rick is from District 8. Did you know if anybody has tried to apply for your position?
Yes, I do know. There's a woman named Dot Norris, who is a marine biologist by training, who has some experience with wastewater, who applied for the position. She was interviewed by the mayor's office, and she hasn't heard a word since. I have met with Dot, spent 2 hours with her, bringing her up to speed on what we are doing and what the meetings are like and how the whole process works. And I'm disappointed that the mayor's office hasn't been able to move the process along. I have reached out to the Bobby Command, the managing director, to ask him if he can look into it and find out what's going on. But the bottom line, from my assessment, I think Dot would be a good replacement for me, and I hope that ultimately she can take a seat. And thanks for your comments, Georgine. I appreciate what you said, number one, and I'm not going anywhere. There's a couple of projects that I've been working on since I started on the commission, and I want to continue to work on those. So I'll be in the background, but thank you all.
Very much appreciated. I'd say Dee from District 7. also has timed out, and again was a very passionate contributor to the EMC. And I miss her being at the meetings. She kept us lively. I don't know if anybody has applied for District 7. I sincerely hope so. It's important, I think, to give representation from around the island. But I will send our sincere appreciation to Dee for the year she's given to the commission. And then, as I've noted, we have a new commissioner, Laura Casio, for District 2. Laura comes to us from a recent stint at the State Senate and has been, and I assume, going to continue to be very involved in environmental issues. And I look forward to your addition to the commission and getting us moving on some important issues. Would you like to give a little bit of your background and your why you joined this commission?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So it's wonderful to meet everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm honored really to be of service. This is definitely something environmental management in general, including and specifically wastewater, has been a big issue for us as we served the 2 years in the Senate, even in prior as well, following a lot of the CESPO working group meetings and legislation. So that's just been a primary focus in some ways. Also, I do have extensive background in a lot of different areas, but I come to this with enthusiasm and solution-oriented, collaborative efforts with you folks. And I really hope to learn a lot about the management and functions of the county in terms of environmental management, and offer a perspective of zero waste and cutting edge, and also how to bring money also into the system so that we can have the opportunities to create some solutions. So I'm an educator for the past 17 years. I have a lot of volunteer service within the community of varying types, but this is definitely something of interest to me personally. For having me. Look forward to getting to know you folks.
Thank you and welcome, and just dive right in. I'm sorry I didn't send you my little intro. I've been off island, out of the country for 3 weeks, and so I'm still a little jet lagged, and haven't caught up to everything going on. But thank you for volunteering to work with us. Appreciate it. And I believe I saw John Olson from District 4 just drove in. Thank you, John. And you've got Del Atsuka with you, don't you?
Yeah.
I hate these screens. They're itty bitty for you guys in that room. So Del Atsuka is with District 3. Glad you're carpooling. That's important as an environmental management commission meeting. I'd like to, since we're a bit lagging here, move to public statements. I understand there are some people in the room, plus I hope everybody has read the 2 written testimonies that were provided to us. So Peter, I'll let you, again, we had some discussion a little bit before the meeting officially started. You can give your testimony now, or you can wait until we hit the agenda item that you're wanting to speak on. But I think the gist was that people wanted to give it sooner rather than later, so you can leave. And I apologize again for having had to sit around for a few minutes waiting for quorum. So Peter, if you could line up our public testifiers.
Do we have any public testifiers in Kona? Okay, first testifier is Debbie Hecht,
Aloha, Commissioners.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Good morning. This is on agenda item 2, the budget, and 4 wastewater division. So do I get 3 minutes on each one, or just 3 minutes?
Yeah, can be each one.
Okay. It shouldn't be that long.
Just indicate when you're transitioning.
Okay. We have a public health problem in Ka'alu area in Kona. It's a world-class snorkel site that is being polluted. And I did email you my testimony, and what's especially important is the two maps. You'll see a blue map, and that shows the area where there are no sewer lines at Cotloo and only cesspools. And then the other very crude map shows all where the cesspools are, or cesspits. The Board of Health didn't have that many records on a whole lot of the ones. On the map, they're showing the ones that had no record, that are assumed to be cesspools, are cross-hatched with blue. So you can look at it really closely. There's a couple septics, there's a couple aerobic sewer systems. So we've been working on this for more than 20 years, and I know Rick Gaffney's followed it closely too. I used to swim at Cotloo 3 times a week. It was something I just so enjoyed until I got an incredible infection in my arms and landed in the hospital twice. And they never could figure out whether it was staph or MRSA. And I wasn't on IV antibiotics for 3 weeks. So on those maps, on especially the very crude map that I cobbled together out of TMKs, you can really see where the yellow is, that the cesspools just wash into the ocean at high tides all the time. And septics are not the answer. Septics still have leach lines with urine seeping into the soils that pollute the water tables potentially, and also the ocean. They also are susceptible at times of super high tides, king tides, and tsunamis to be inundated, go in and fill up the tank, and then the sewage, the hard sewage, all comes out. As you know, cesspools are holes in the ground where black water sewage from your toilet and house goes straight into the ground. When you snorkel on the north side of Cotloo Bay, and for those of you that know the area, it's a teeny, adorable little church with a blue roof. And over that side, there's lots of turtles because the algae's growing there, and it's increased over the years. It's brown algae now. So I respectfully request that the Environmental Management Commission send a formal communication to Mayor Roth, the Director of Environmental Management, Ramsey Massour, and a Deputy Managing Director, Bobby Command, and Deanna Sacco, because the County Council and the Mayor are all going into budget hearings. Should I go into the second one?
You may.
Okay, so I believe that you all can send a formal communication to these people, asking them to include money in the budget for fiscal year 2023 to 2024, to have enough money in the budget to have environmental impact statement or environmental assessment, whichever is deemed required, and also engineering drawings to get this project. It's only a mile of sewer, and to get this project shovel ready so we can apply for Biden's infrastructure. We already missed Obama's infrastructure. And again, this has been going on for 20 years. It is a public health crisis. So it's time to get this done. I firmly believe it's a fundamental job of government to protect the health of citizens. And I think Georgine said I could take questions now or after public testimony, so I'll be here for that. Well, hello.
Thank you. Are there any clarifications that any of the commissioners would like to ask of her at this point? In addition, when we get to the director's report, and Chris is here to represent the wastewater division, we will be talking about what the current plans are and what DEM is doing to address this issue. If you don't want to stay around for the rest of the meeting, that's fine. You can catch us. We do post the video and the minutes of our meetings. and you can go to DEM and get additional information. But I see Commissioner Cardwell has a question.
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm wondering, has an environmental impact statement ever been done on this area? I mean, that's a lot of cesspools. I'm just wondering if there's what the history of the area is, because if anyone knows.
Yeah, in my discussions with Bobby Command, who's the deputy managing director for this side of the island, he said that we need to get that done. So based on that, I'm assuming that no, it's not ever been done, which is pretty astonishing when you think it's only a mile. It's only a mile, and affects the water. I mean, and from the Maui Supreme Court ruling, I would think this is not only a public health crisis, but a pending lawsuit. So I just, I frankly, for the last 20 years, can never have believed that this isn't taken care of. I've been working on this since Brenda Ford was council member when I was her legislative aide. So it's a pretty darn long time. So
I understand your comment, and again, I would like to hold the discussion with DEM about what they're doing and what their plans are until the reports on our item 8. If that's okay with everyone? Okay, thank you very much, Debbie. Excuse me?
I'm not a member of the commission, but I was wondering, Sylvia Earle has designated the Kapalua area as a blue spot, right? And therefore there is environmental interest in that area to preserve that. And I also volunteer at Kapalua as a reef teach person, but I really don't go into the bay after rain. I don't. And I was wondering also,
excuse me, just protocol. And Laura, I need to admit that I'm rotten at following all the Robert's Rules stuff. And Sherry Tavares, our deputy counsel, needs to jump on me every once in a while and say, wait. So are we receiving new testimony, and do you have her name, Peter?
Yes, this is Doc Norris, and I did start the timer when she started speaking.
Okay, great.
So if you want to continue.
I'm sorry.
can I continue?
Yes.
I'm wondering, is there a baseline or any kind of monitoring that's being done in Kapalua of water quality?
yes, there is, but it's only done every 2 weeks. It takes 5 days to get the results back. And it's, it goes up and down, just like what you said.
Well, also during storm events that should be intensified, definitely.
I couldn't agree more. And Rick Gaffney knows probably as much as anybody about this. You want to chime in at any time?
Are you done speaking?
I am
Ms.
done
Norris? Okay.
speaking.
Thank you. Chair, we also have Corey Harden.
Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about the water issues later in the agenda, and I don't think it's appropriate unless the commissioners want to change our agenda order to get into that now. I will say that over the years, both Rick and Dee Fulton have been proponents of doing work on these priority areas, and they're not forgotten, and we will discuss further at item 8. We also have other public testimony from Corey Harden, who also submitted written comments. But Corey, I'm glad you can be here to give us your comments in person. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you all for your service on the commission. Have 2 items. One, speaking for Sierra Club on number 1, the legislative update. I sent you information before on County Resolution 73. It had only one reading before County Council, but supported a major change, which is sending all county solid waste to one facility and getting it started within the next 3 years. That facility would need a steady stream of waste. But as you know, 2 waste to energy proposals for Hawaii Island were rejected in the past because we don't generate enough garbage to make it cost effective. And as you know, on Oahu, taxpayers are paying penalties to H-Power because Oahu can't generate enough waste to fulfill the contract. Also under Resolution 73, green waste is now given freely to people who are farming at a subsistence level, but that would stop. It would be taken to make biochar. So then farmers would need to start paying for mulch, which would be shipped in over thousands of miles, wrapped in plastic. And after the biochar was made, it would not be free. We've been told that Resolution 73 was written at the request of one company. I think it's pronounced Yume, and written for its benefit, and that would be an ethics violation. And the Yume CEO made several claims that could not be verified. I hope you folks will consider recommending to council that measures that propose far-reaching changes should first go to you, then a council committee, and only then to the full council. And I hope you'll continue to encourage the council towards source reduction, reuse, and recycling. Also to focus on that old Huhonua site. Lord knows what they're going to propose for that site. It might be a good site for battery storage, for renewable energy or hemp processing. On the second item, I'm just speaking as an individual. I didn't have time to run this by the Sierra Club board. This is number 8, number 4, number 3, the Hilo wastewater plant. I really want to commend Director Mansour for all his work on this very challenging issue. And I am conflicted about saying anything that might cause delays, but I hope Director Mansour will address these questions. I think the original design is going to be used for phase 1 work. So does that mean it will be 30-year-old technology? And will the wastewater be as good as with modern technology? For instance, will it meet modern NPDES standards? Also, will operators know how to work with a 30-year-old design? It's been compared to a millennial trying to drive a stick shift. You know, how is that going to work? Will sludge still be trucked to the Kona landfill? And are there enough mechanics to keep the trucks running over there? Will salt water that is leaking into corroded collection pipes get into the new plant and damage it? Should there be ultraviolet disinfection? And last, I believe there's going to be an environmental assessment done only for phase 2, but not for phase 1. But that can be considered segmentation, breaking up one project into a lot of little projects and saying, oh, the impacts aren't that bad, but they seem very closely intertwined. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Again, I think we'll be talking about the Hilo wastewater treatment plant activities at item 8 in our agenda. But thank you for your questions, and hopefully we'll get some of those answered then. Are there any other comments from the public?
When will item 8 be heard? When?
It'll be this morning, hopefully. I would guess, since I'm being told that we've lost a couple of our speakers for items coming up, my guess is it will be on the order of 10:30. Again, we record the meetings and we'll have minutes. And then separately, you're welcome to contact DEM to get information directly from them. Okay, if there are no more public statements, I'd like to move to item 5, which is our unfinished business. The first item is wastewater pretreatment code and rules update. Anybody, Ramsey, Sherry, know where they are?
Good morning and thank you, Georgianne. We have Chris Laude. He's in charge of the pre-treatment for the wastewater division. Chris, could you please give the committee update, the commission update?
Yeah, sure. My chief is not here today, so we're without Dora. But basically, we've gone through the county code. We've looked at it from the perspective of what does the pre-treatment program and the AOC require. Another consideration is past directors have looked at the code and made suggested changes, suggested edits. The new Ramsey has looked at it too and has made some comments and suggestions. And then we took the comments and suggestions that you folks gave us, and we massaged it, we rearranged it a little bit to make it flow a little better and easier to follow. And I'm not sure where we are on that. We sent a copy, or I sent a copy up to my chief. Not really clear what happened to it after that, but in my mind, we're ready to have you guys look at it and make comments.
Okay, that's all we're asking for, is we want to get a chance to look
Yeah,
at and make
and
comment.
I
Hard
have
to
a
talk about
PowerPoint.
in generalities here.
I know we're past that point, and I do have a PowerPoint I can give you. It's a bit wordy. It's about 16 pages long. It might take me 15 minutes to go through it, but yeah, I think at this point, really, we need to give you the copy of the ordinance so you can take a look at it.
I agree. And again, just have Peter get the word when it's ready to go and can ship it out to the commission for review.
Okay.
This is my bug Ramsey every time item that I put on the agenda each time. The next item, 5.2, we were to have Director Zendo talk about the zoning code, again, deferred from last meeting. Well, he's sick today, so it will be deferred until next meeting. The third item is me bugging you with some ideas, looking at county landfill diversion ordinance initiatives. And I gave last time, and again, we didn't have time, so we deferred it to this time. This is kind of a brainstorm, if you will, in the reference section, I believe it is, of, no, it's not in there. It's in last meeting's a folder, I guess, of looking at what are some of the things that we could do. One of our commenters, Corey Hardnett, commented about this resolution 73-23 that just got passed. I just watched the council meeting on that one. And basically it says that all solid waste should be sent to a single site that is going to basically burn it to biochar and take any wastewater that comes out and retreat it to make it reusable water. And that's all going to be done by 2026. It's a resolution, which means we didn't get a shot officially at it as Environmental Management Commission. When it becomes a proposed ordinance, we will get a chance to formally comment on any provisions, but it was represented in that meeting as a policy direction, wish, and not a prescription that must be followed by DEM. I thought it was extraordinary when I first read it, and then I went away and didn't get a chance to really comment on it. But in that spirit, apparently the council is interested in maximizing diversion from landfill. So I offered up, and everybody else is welcome to add to it. I'd like to just start off the discussion around what can we do or recommend rather as the Environmental Management Council on keeping things from being landfilled on this island. So if you haven't gone back and looked at it, I'll just quickly zoom through it, unless Peter, you've got it and you want to put it up on the screen. But basically, yeah, Melissa.
There's an issue with that link, Georgine. When I click on that link, it just takes me to like the main menu. It doesn't take me to the actual landfill diversion initiative page. So I'd have to sort through, like I'd have to figure out where, I don't know where that is and how to find it because the link doesn't work.
Okay.
Or it doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
You have to go in and search through.
I'd have to search for, yeah,
folders,
I'd have to go like Environmental Management Commission folder, and then I'd have to go to, I don't even know where it would be. There's agendas, commissioners, rules and meeting schedule, environmental management fact sheet, and then the minutes.
Now,
So
I don't know, Peter, if that's something you could put up the link in chat, or again, you could show on screen if you've got it accessible yourself, or I'll just blather through it. Again, I don't think you guys have done the homework you need to do on this, but I wanted to get you started thinking about what is it, other than this concept of taking all our solid waste to a single site that's going to turn it into biochar. We may have a council that is amenable to looking at landfill bans. My initial kickoff thought was to look at what we are able to recycle and reuse, green waste, construction and demolition. Unfortunately, we had under new business, we were going to hear from Reuse Hawaii. And unfortunately, they cannot make it today. Oh, Peter's starting. There it is. So looking at the materials that we know we can divert and get recycled, because they're regulated as such, we have programs in place, but we don't have the backstop of you cannot landfill these. You cannot take them to the transfer station and put them in the wrong chute.
yeah.
You cannot, as a business, do the same thing because there is a way, and it is economically feasible, and that's always arguable. But looking at where can we get some significant diversion, where we've got the ability to recycle and reuse, recognizing that right now we don't. For example, I've got this line down there saying not ready yet. Food waste, we're still arguing about how best to do that. And until we get that infrastructure in place, that would be not fair, not appropriate, I think, to actually ban landfill, because then what are you going to do with it? Paper, textiles, plastics, we're not there, but we can get there. A second, again, brainstorm, actually a recommendation from the Solid Waste Advisory Commission committee that I was on, is to allow small businesses to do recycling at the transfer stations instead of having to haul stuff to whomever they can cut a business deal with, Business Services or Atlas or one of the others. 3 would be start putting some screws on multifamily properties like the condo association that I live in, to provide not only recycling opportunities, that collection bin place to do that and set up and pay for transportation to recycling, preferably to the transfer stations, maybe requiring some kind of fee, but start leaning on those that can be leaned upon. 4 is looking at commercial facilities, including the hotels, again, require them to do some kind of recycling education, because a lot of the problem is people don't even know what they can do today. and provide those facilities or that service of taking waste that can be recycled. Number 5 is the other bunch of outfits like government facilities, including schools, again, to make those things available. 6 was looking at how do we start putting some screws on businesses, larger businesses, that they have to know what kind of waste they're generating, do an inventory, and set some goals and write stupid reports that nobody likes writing, but to try to get them to start thinking about how can I reduce the production of waste in the first place and recycle what I do. And then the last item, which was one I was hoping and will bring up when we ever get zoning people here, is what are some of the regulations that may exist at the state level that wouldn't allow subdivisions or other groups of residents to set up a recycle collection site. I think right now they can't do it because it's considered a solid waste site. And by another rule that I don't know where bill that's being talked about in the Senate, they're going to basically ban on any place that has an aquifer, and the island of Hawaii has been designated as the whole island has got an aquifer, so you can't build anything. So anyway, these are just some starting points, whether there's some that grab you, some that you think might be valuable for EMC to get behind and try to move. Again, maybe this council is going to be more amenable to thinking about those kinds of things. I'm done. Comments?
Well, you're sitting down, right?
I am sitting down. Talk up louder or I gotta pump your.
Everything you just described, we already did. And the starting point was the KL transfer station. And that was intended to be a full service facility in terms of anything that you didn't need anymore could end up there. We did the work using a federal grant that was tied to a civil rights complaint that we filed against the county. When they investigated the complaint, they tied the state to it. And all of this has been laid out.
Well, I want to do time out on you, John. What I'm talking about is at an ordinance level from the county council.
Yes.
Ban.
Yes.
Ban.
Yes.
Make it illegal to throw into the trash certain materials that we know we can manage. What you're talking about, I believe at KO, is how we would do the management and to have facilities available for people to use and take things to. But backstop it with a ban saying it is illegal to put it in the trash. So you've got to find some other way to do it. Now, obviously, we don't ban something if there's no way to do it.
That is exactly the problem that we attempted to deal with. And of course, both the state and the county ran out of money. And there were changes on the federal level at EPA. And the people who were working with us on that, a familiar name, I guess it's now gone, Shannon Fitzgerald, right? And it's all in the books. And I was standing down there the other day just wondering how the wheels came off, because we had the land, we had the connectivity issues, we had the water. And the thing never grew beyond that initial little what you see. But it's there is a book full of it. And
that would provide one location where people would have an alternative to landfill.
Deal with all of the large and small lot subdivisions. I mean, Puna alone has a build out figure of 80,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on a good day. Wait to see what shows up. It'll be double that.
I hear you, and I will guarantee to you that we will again agendize the idea of setting up resource recovery parks and using your KL original planning as a measure. But that's another package. I'm having a meeting tomorrow. I'm going to see if I can get some more scoop. So I'll have that on a future agenda, but this particular item is meant to get you thinking about, are there some places where we can just outright ban landfilling? There are downsides to bans. The claim is always made that, well, people just dump it in a ditch somewhere because they don't care. But there may be some muscle that we could put in to say, no, we're just not going to allow landfilling these materials that are perfectly reusable, recyclable. Enforcement, a whole nother mess. Anyway, other comments from other commissioners? Is this worth looking into? Laura, you have a question.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's a good time. It's very timely in a lot of different ways. That will, you know, we can bring out as we move forward. One of the thoughts that comes to my mind is how to support a statewide and also, or if we can downsize it to county initiatives around extended producer responsibility. So rather than looking at it from the ban side on what we can landfill, it would be, you know, what we're accepting into our county, or helping to guide policy on the producer side, or a policy that guides packaging and business models that produce waste in the first place. And so kind of it ties in very nicely with what you're presenting. And I think there's a lot of movement that can be had in this topic.
Okay. I mean, there is a balance. Some of it's going to be straight state is the only one that can do some of this stuff. Others, and I was looking more specifically as well, what EMC's charter is to advise DEM and the council. We're not supposed to be sending stuff to the governor. We can leverage and hope to get the council to support movement into this state. But I was trying to take the, if you will, baby step of what can we get the county to do reasonably, and that we practically have alternatives for people. Again, I don't want to just say we're going to ban everything, and if you can't find a way to deal with it, well, too bad, you got to eat it. Melissa, you had a comment.
Yeah, I just want to second what you're saying, Georgine. I do like the idea of banning certain things from the landfill, because I think, unfortunately, that's probably one of the few ways we're going to keep people from throwing stuff, you know, in the garbage chute that they shouldn't. But I do have the concern of people just dumping things wherever. I mean, that does happen a lot in Pune. We have all kinds of stuff. And then I also wanted to comment on Corey Hardin's testimony, which maybe that'll come up later, but it seems like an appropriate time, that I think that resolution is a terrible, terrible idea. And so when it does come around for us to say something about it, I definitely think we should. I was privy to one of Mike Ewall's presentations about incineration and the situation that Oahu is in, and we definitely do not want to end up in that situation. Oahu, as Corey said, has had continual fines because they just simply don't produce enough garbage to keep H Power going. And you know, Honolulu is a city of 1 million people, so if they can't produce enough garbage, we're certainly not going to be able to produce enough. So I just want to say that, and I've said it before, I don't think that we should go down that road. And I think the resource recovery parks are, I know the resolution's passed council. Yeah, I saw that. Oh, it won't come up again. Okay. I thought that, Georgine, I thought you said something about it, even though it had passed council, that it might come around again.
Well,
somehow.
the difference, and Sherry, I'll let you come in because I was asking her to double check me. We have an official authorization, in fact, a requirement to review any new ordinances that impact DEM. This is a resolution, so step before it. It was represented as policy. There was a couple of different council members who didn't like the language that was in there and thought it went overboard on a single solution. But it was said, this is just a policy. This is a direction. We need to now start diverting waste and quit putting it in a landfill. And the details, well, we'll work those out, and they'll be worked out within each individual ordinance to make them up. Yeah, okay. I still would like to explore whether we could comment or need to comment as a commission, but we'll get to that when we hit the legislative session. So
I had one more thing. Sorry, I had one more thing I want to say when you're done.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so so Laura had mentioned the extended producer responsibility. There's actually a bill that's been passing through. It's, I think, HB 1326. Yeah, HD1, SD1. So I can, if you all want, I can send a email because right now it's at this very crucial point of being up for hearing, but Senator Dela Cruz needs to hear from a lot of us, like hundreds of people, to get that bill to have a hearing. And so that's the next step for this extended producer responsibility bill. So that's at the state level. Like you said, Georgine, we're with the county council, but as individuals concerned about this, you know, we could all send an email. It's an easy thing to do. So I just want to mention that.
Okay, and again, we'll have a legislative review by DEM at our last item. Other comments? Lee?
Yeah, are you asking for items to ban like high five and plastics, or are you asking for comments on technologies available?
It could be either. The question is there enough energy in this EMC to keep digging into this area? Looking at how do we ban landfill, but also we cannot ban landfill if we have no alternative other than landfilling, or it will wind up in the ditch. So how do we make sure we've got resource recovery parks, we've got transfer stations that work, we have collection methodologies, we are using the latest, greatest technology that may be out there. So it's all of it. It's looking at, is banning landfill a route that is reasonable, and then how do we make it practical so that it can be achieved, and technology is part of that. So if you have any, I've got the, this biochar burner thing is the answer. Okay, that would be one way that, all right, we're going to ship stuff off, and which stuff is appropriate to ship off to a biochar facility.
We already have some items that are, I guess, landfill banned, like tires and such.
Right.
So I guess if the county really wanted to move in that direction, picking items that we already recycle, have programs for, like the glass, the metal, and the high five, you can do that. I see no problem with that. But problem I see is enforcement. I mean, you throw it in a plastic bag, you toss it in, they don't know what you're throwing away, and they're not going to go through it either. So I mean, I've actually seen people throw tires openly into the dumpster. And so, I mean, well, yeah, so, I mean,
I know it's very frustrating, and the question is, it'll be work. We cannot track everybody and what they happen to throw in which bag or barrel. But there may be some things we could do to reduce it. The analogy is the pay-as-you-throw programs. that you pay less if it's recycle bin as opposed to your trash bin. And for example, in this state of California, they have police, basically trash police, who go and look at your recycle bin and say, nope, 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 we're not taking this. We're going to charge you and fine you. And we're going to shove this education brochure down your throat. There are various ways to tackle it. But a lot of studies have shown that, yeah, there's a jump in illegal trashing out in the land, but then it goes down as education improves, as people have more convenient ways to recycle, divert the waste, and it reaches a nice steady state of doing a lot of diversion. But it's not easy, and you have to have programs in place to achieve it.
And also, it hasn't come up, but I don't know if anyone knows about it, but I know the DOT, they're working with right now they're working with plastic pellets to introduce into their road mix so that, they can use up plastic, and it allows them to cover more ground when repaving. And they've indicated that if it is successful, that they would like to purchase the equipment and do it on island. So potentially that is a solution for plastics that all the islands can ship to Oahu, or maybe they'll have a facility on each island, since the state is responsible for each island's highways now, that each island can ship their plastic to or send it to, and we don't have to worry about recycling plastic. So
That could
that's a
be
future
a
opportunity.
wonderful option. And what I was thinking about when I was thinking about the landfill ban, where we have capability to use it, we would add to that list. It wouldn't be a static list. As conditions change, new technology, new facilities are available to us, new uses, like the transportation department finds that those kind of plastic roads work just swell in this climate. Great. We've got a market now. So we can divert, and we can say, no, you're banned from landfilling and stuff, because we've got a really good use for it. So it would be something that would need to be added to as we get more capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea. Anybody else?
Chair, just as this is Laura Ocasio,
Laura.
as we're in discussion just around that, just to bring to the table that microplastic degradation, as we put it in the environment, is a huge problem. And there's studies coming out now finding microplastic in amniotic fluid, and as we put more of it into the actual environment, it actually degrades a lot faster, even with our UV and stuff. So while it sounds like a great solution, I think we really do need to look into some of the deeper science around it breaking down in the environment and what that means for our oceans and our aquifers, et cetera. So just putting that on the table as something else. And just while we were quickly on the topic of extended producer responsibility, I did want to also point out there's a lot of nuances to be learned about extended producer responsibility, and even myself in the past 2 years have been learning an extensive amount. But I would also encourage people to look at Senate Bill 1458, which is currently sleeping. It's a biennium, so it could come up next year. But if one is going to look at the other the current the EPR bill from the House that has moved this year, also. There was one last year as well that went all the way to conference committee, but look at the nuances between the two, and one focusing much more on reuse and refill and compost as opposed to recycling, which we don't necessarily have the infrastructure here on this island. So just to really dive into the nuances and the differences, as opposed to thinking it's a one size fits all solution. So mahalo for that opportunity to share about that.
I agree, and you'll also discover, which I think is again on our agenda, I'm very much a proponent of life cycle analysis and making sure that you're considering all the impacts of particular technologies, including whether, yeah, it makes a great road, but they wear out. They have to replace those roads all the time. Well, where to go? In our case, out into the ocean. So you need to look at the whole picture and to evaluate whether or not we're really doing the better job. And so I'll be interested to hear whether this life cycle analysis has been done yet on what we are currently recycling. Other comments from commissioners? Is this something you want to keep looking at? I can agendize certain pieces of it. You know, what we may want to focus on. Well, I'll propose something for next meeting and maybe whittle down. I didn't mean for us to send out a motion that we'll adopt all 7 and we'll send it to the council. We're not ready to do that yet. But I think to get started and to get up some more details and focus that we can look at. Melissa.
We do need a link that works to find that.
Okay, let me see. I've got a
so-
chat. I haven't looked at yet.
Or yeah, at least.
I'll send
No,
a
and-
new one out. This is-
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
It's actually from the references from the February agenda, so that's where I found it.
It's in the. Is it in the minutes or yeah? Where?
I will send it out to
Okay.
everybody. It's my document. And,
Okay.
and I'll get it out. But yeah, it was in the February meeting documents in the reference folder. Because I found it there at one point, but I'll send it out again. And again, I'll maybe arbitrarily, since I'm not getting a particular votes on it, pick a topic and we can dive deeper next time. And I can work with the solid waste. Craig, you'll get to help me pull together some comments perhaps to allow us to further discuss that issue. So unless there are any other comments, I will move on to new business. Don't see anybody wiggling. Okay, item 6.1, we were going to have somebody from Reuse Hawaii, the guys who are doing demolition and then reusing, selling and reusing the construction waste down in Kona. They're very active as well on Oahu, but couldn't make it today. So hopefully we'll hear from them because I'd love to see us be able to ban the landfill of certain construction waste that are perfectly usable if we only had facilities to get that done. Number 2 was an item that I think Del Otsuka was concerned about last meeting, and that is movement. I'll have to say I haven't checked what today's movement is on the cesspool conversion. There is a Senate Bill 426 that would follow the recommendations from the cesspool working group to move up the deadline for replacement of priority 1 cesspools to, last time I looked, it was 2030, but I think they now changed it to 2035. Is that right? Is anybody tracking that stuff? Anyway, they're moving it up. 2050 is the state overall. We will have no cesspools. Yeah, sure. But they're going to try to do priority 1 cesspools sooner rather than later. But the concern was, and Del, correct me if I'm misrepresenting you, that if we're going to seriously, we've got money and plans in place and we're going to sewer an area, we would rather people hook up to the sewer than to put a septic in, because sewering is better than septic. And if that time frame is outside of whatever the pushed up deadline, 2030, 2035, are we getting in, or would we want to allow people to defer to sewering as the preferred method and not be caught by an arbitrary deadline? Is that what you were concerned with, Del? I'm concerned with.
Well, yes, for my district in Kilpa, cesspools for septic tanks are out, you know, but the sewer, I think last we talked, we're looking to get federal money for this, to put in the sewer, yes? And my concern was having homeowners pay for the sewer system when we're getting it.
Peter, can you make her louder or scoot the speaker closer to you down?
Yeah, do you want to get closer to the speaker, the microphone?
Cool. Well, we're talking about from the cesspool group when I was watching the video. They're looking to get funding now that we can from the federal government to pay for the sewer system that we need. And so they're looking at maybe homeowners having to pay for it using low interest loans from the banks, working with the banks. And my concern was, if we're getting the money from the federal government to cover the cost of the sewer, why are homeowners having to pay for that? I can understand paying a monthly fee, but not for the cost of that, because as we mentioned before, Hawaii County is a poorest county. And to have the homeowners in Kilkaha or other places like that foot the bill for that, I don't think it's fair. That was it.
Okay, so slightly different angle. Ramsey, are you there? Or Chris, can you comment on the sewering plans for priority 1 and whether you see that 2030 or maybe it's 2035 deadline as being a challenge for you?
Yeah, once again, good morning, commission members. Yeah, it could be a challenge, definitely based on having us even put in a layout and given the constituents an option. Cesspool conversion, unfortunately, is a state-driven, state-mandated requirement for individual homeowners, because the DOH, the department that issue the permits for such conversions. Our role as a county is to try to create a layout that could assist the constituents. I'll call it a roadmap or cesspool conversion master plan that I just finished talking to our staff about, going out and soliciting a consultant to come back with a roadmap for the entire county based on priority areas and the options they may have. So that way, if priority 3, let's say in the Puna district, and they don't have a wastewater facilities, but there is a master plan that being done as we speak. If the master plan says, yes, it's more feasible to build a wastewater facility for that district, for that area, then how are we going to fund it and when are we going to have it constructed by? If it's priority 3, we may be able to do it prior to the 2050. That way, people don't have to convert because eventually they may have a wastewater treatment system. But we're working on that from that angle. So the west side and other area like the Hilo area and west side is true to that, as well as we need to put our hand through that master cesspool conversion plan. The Hilo, for example, because there's a service area there that already committed to go to the Hilo waste treatment plan. So we need to look at the hydraulics and the expansion of that sewer collection to include cesspool potentials. But it is priority 2 and some of it within priority 1. That's 7 years from now. So the idea is, could the county or the department be able to fund and complete design, construction, environmental assessment prior to the 2030, or be able to do it within 7 days to be able to allow these people the connection to the sewer lines. And to do that, the only vehicle that currently we have within the county is to create a facility community sewer district. Because that's the only vehicle that the county could be able to fund these through the homeowner creation of that facility community district. And that require us going around communities, or the communities creating leadership within their community to go around and be able to solicit 55+ votes percentage from the community. We have to have 55% to constitute the creation of such a district. So there is a complex process to get there, and trying to get that 55% of the community in agreement. That's the way they want it to go, rather than converting to septic. Then that will be implemented, and we could act on it, and we could go through the environmental process and what have you once that district is created. So that's for the area that we see has to be sewered. And if that became the roadmap, then people could say, okay, I'm within this area, therefore I don't have to convert to septic, because eventually I'm going to convert. So this is what I'm envisioning, try to create that roadmap to help our constituents. I know the State Department they have their own deadlines, but I think if you guys have watched our presentation on the cesspool conversion, we the biggest county within the state that we lack the sewer collection system. We about 21-23% sewered for the whole island, where city and county Honolulu is about 97% sewered. So this type of bill that allow for acceleration definitely is going to benefit Maui County and city and county, because they already got their infrastructure. But unfortunately, we don't, because we only about 20-23% sewered for the whole county. So that's going to be a challenge. Definitely. Is it possible? It is, but everything's possible, but likely improbable.
It only takes money.
It takes money, and it takes commitment, and yeah, it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but we need to. One of the idea that I recommended, and maybe you guys could give us advice on it and analyze it further, is to make the entire county as a facility community sewer district. And maybe it would go out to the people to vote on it. So now the entire county will be a sewer district, where we could the county collect the fees from the constituents, and will take over the infrastructure and everything else. If the entire county become a sewer district, then we could be able to generate ever revenue, and it create a priority, and based on the priority area, we could start allocating that money to the sewer infrastructure. And if we do that, I think from a financial point of view, we could go out for general obligation bonds or certificate of participation as a standalone district, rather than tying the entire county debt ratio in it, because they already had the 15%. So once we expand the revenue generation, if we make it a whole county district, sewer district, then to me, financially, we could start getting more money coming to the district to allow us to do the infrastructure, because now we know we're going to offset it with revenue coming in. So let's assume the entire county is 70,000 constituents, then that revenue comes from the 70,000 constituents rather than the 6,000 we have on the book now. And then we could start planning, just like the water, the Department of Water Supply. you have to have revenue to be able to put the infrastructure. So maybe that's something for you guys to look into and analyze and advise us on the feasibility of such creation of an entire county sewer district.
Well, that's certainly a bold approach.
Well, it is bold, but what other option? I mean, I have having a hard
Well,
time.
I think Della's thinking maybe she's dreaming that there's all this federal money that's going to rain down on Hawaii Island to give you revenue to do this stuff.
With this new infrastructure, monies, weren't they talking about getting money to help with this? Because that's all I was looking at. If that were the case, then why would we pass, you know, to the homeowners, the cost of it when we're getting it paid for by the government? But thank you, Ramsey. But my concern too is Hawaiian Homes. Hawaiian Homes will help with whatever infrastructure needed for your sewer hookup, because they are doing it already. And presently, currently, they're doing one street in Keaukaha now. And they dug up the whole road, but they couldn't find the plans for the water pipes from the Department of Water Supply. So they can't go on putting the sewer line in. So I'm just saying, you know, it's good to have the whole county buy into it and we look at it as one. But Keaukaha and maybe Paneava is separate because we have, Hawaiian Homes will fund it if you work with them to do it, because they're willing to do that.
You're right. And we have been working with the Department of Hawaiian Home, Colbert and Manny. We've been meeting with them. We already gave them the authorization to put the sewer infrastructure. Their challenge is they're gonna put the sewer infrastructure, but they still expecting the homeowner to do the connections. And I told them, how could you guys do that? I mean, they need to be able to help their homeowners, but that's something between them and the homeowners. But yes, they intend to put the sewer within the roadway, but they still anticipate the homeowner to do the connection to the street.
So then am I to understand that we're not gonna apply for any federal monies to help with the sewer for the county? Because I thought there was talk about doing that, but if that were the case, then again, to find low interest loans for a poor county isn't gonna help the homeowners. And if they have to sign a lien to their homes, if they forfeit payment, then that would not be good. And you know, you did the last time I know there were 6,000 sewer. That's good. You know,
Yeah, there is within these state Senate bills, there's two things. As a government entity in county, we could only apply for project ready within the county right of way projects. We cannot enter private properties to do connections and what have you. That's why they're trying to set aside financial benefit to the cesspool conversion within certain income. I think if you guys have seen the presentation that we did in February 21st by our consultant, she said financially is going to cost the state about $2 billion total. The county of Hawaii is 55% of these conversions, so it definitely is going to be hitting our county with big dollar figure to convert. But usually we try to do either tax credit or up to $10,000-$20,000 assistance to these homeowners they could apply to. Currently, we're working with the Department of Health. Our housing department is working with the Department of Health. They set aside $5 million for the whole state. So the Hawaii County is getting $1.8 million out of that $5 million to help our disadvantaged homeowners to do the conversion.
I understand, and that's appreciated, I know, but even if you gave them, say, $20,000 as a credit, a lot of them can't afford, even with the credit. That's
Yeah.
But you know, with the current customers on sewer, that's over $3 million a year, and 70,000 more people would put a lot of money into that fund.
So again, you know, I only brought it up last time because I thought we were gonna apply for some federal money for the sewer.
Yeah, I mean, good questions, and that's why to be honest with you, I go to sleep at night and thinking about solution. That's why it finally dawned on me, if we do a whole county community sewer district and have the people vote on it, because they're gonna end up paying the monthly fees. So if everybody on board to pay the monthly fees and have the county take care of their sewer system, we could do that. Because now we have revenue generation that we could go start planning around it to be able to project and get loans and get grants and stand alone as an entity rather than being under the mercy of always the general fund, or to subsidize our capital projects, or because of the low amount of our constituents that already sewered, our revenue doesn't even cover the O&M. So yes, it's a challenging. The constituents need help. I totally understand that. The County of Hawaii, the lowest household income probably within the state. So we understand that it's going to be a challenge financially. How could we go about assisting our constituents, even though it's a state run program and permitted program, but I see as our obligation as a county to be able to provide our constituents a good roadmap that could financially be fiscally, we become the fiscal responsible party to implement a good vision to our constituents. If it needs sewers, collection, expansion, and what have you, then we need to be able to convey that to our constituents of how we're going to sewer it, how we're going to finance it, and who's going to pay for it, etc. So definitely, it's a challenging issue, especially with bringing the deadline to 2030 and 2035 for these high priorities. It's a challenge. Yeah, great question.
Rick Gaffney, you had a question.
It's not so much a question, it's a comment. I like that Ramsey's really thinking out of the box with this, looking at the entire island as one problem area. However, I'm concerned that the one thing that proposal doesn't consider is possible public-private partnerships. We already have a number of high-end sewage treatment plants on this island that are managed by private companies. And those private companies are willing to expand. They're looking for expansion opportunities. And secondly, we already know, because we're the biggest island in the state, that we can't do as Honolulu has done and have one major recycling plant for the whole island, much less wastewater treatment plants for the whole island. So we need to look at opportunities that exist already to manage wastewater. And I think that model should include bringing the private wastewater systems into the fold. They're willing, they have markets for the R1 water out the back end. They're experienced in this. They're doing it all over the country. These companies are not just local companies. They're much bigger companies with bigger resources and assets. So while I like the idea of planning for the entire island and getting all of the island on board, I don't want to miss the opportunity potentially to utilize already existing plants and already existing areas that are already asking for R1 water, and they're unable to get it because, just like we can't afford the expansion of our current sewer system, we are also, in parallel to that, unable to expand the R1 water distribution system as well. And that's going to be very supportive of a massive sewer system in the long run. So yeah, I understand, obviously, from being on council for 4 years, I understand the complexity of the problem, but I don't want to eliminate opportunities in the creation of that solution.
No, these are good, good concern, Rick. Just to give you heads up, thank you for bringing it, because I have also been working on that issue as well. I even had a Zoom meeting just within the last 3 weeks with a friend of mine that I used to work with back in California to create sewer annexed area. And I think I brought it to your attention, guys, last meeting about the possibility of expanding the private entities into a more of a sewer serviced area. That way their boundary will be expanded. They guarantee the connection within that boundary, so that annexed area, sewer area, become their district. And then they would be willing to put the capital cost up front because now they guarantee the area of service. This also is controlled by Public Utility Commission, as I don't know if you all know that. So, and that cannot be done unless the Public Utility Commission signs off on that. So I had a meeting with American Water a month ago to discuss that possibility with Poolco expansion. They showed some interest. They also were talking about the possibility of how would the Public Utility Commission approve such additional service, because they mandated at a certain rate. So they cannot break the rate structure into two different rates unless they create two separate districts within one district. So also that it's complicated process, but Rick, to your concerns, I was ahead of that. And I had that solution prior to coming up with the county-wide sewer district, because it seemed like every time we come with outside the box thinking solutions, something comes and it try to make it more challenging. And I think you're absolutely right. And the reason I start talking about it, because we try to pass Senate Bill 997, if you recall, about private-public partner, but that didn't go well. So my outside-the-box thinking was the annexed sewer areas just for the current facilities that already exist, run by a private sector, that willing to expand to service the surrounding neighbors. I mean, it makes total sense as part of the cesspool conversion. If the county doesn't have facility and these people within a reach from an existing private wastewater system, why can't we just allow them to connect to it? You know, it's just the laws and the legal obligations. Sometimes it doesn't make logical sense when we have to be boots on the ground trying to accomplish things. So it's definitely a challenge, but so the community need to go and deal with these private entities on their own, and we could set the framework for them, but we cannot put county and federal fund into it because the corner decision gonna jump in and bite us. So you have to be the facilitator between these two entities, with the hope that the community and the private sector work the deal together. Without
Well, I'm going to jump in here now for the sake of agenda. We do have the discussion of partnerships with private wastewater at 8.5, which I think is what you're talking about. I also hear you talking about this concept of county-wide, and then the county will take over this monstrous sewer system. I think maybe the topic we should have on next time's meeting is how would we integrate a public-private management of county-wide sewer system. And how do we need to change laws, and probably at the state level, to allow some portions of that countywide management to be performed by private businesses. I assume there need to be some boundaries, which maybe the PUC is responsible for setting on how customers are treated. But I think maybe we need to do some work between time on coming up with how to describe the potential projects here and providing some background materials for next meeting. Is that okay, everybody? Yeah, not. Are we in need of a bathroom break? Nod. Yes, no. Okay, let's take 5 and try to be back here shortly. Thank you.
Ring the bell.
Hi, the next item on the agenda is item 6.3. If anyone had opportunity to read and have comments on the proposed solid waste division admin procedural rules that were in our meeting packet, I had some relatively minor comments that I already sent in to DEM. I'm asking whether anybody has anything specific we would like to formally submit to DEM. They're having a public hearing in April on the 10th and the 11th. I don't know if you wanted Ramsey or Craig to comment on any specific items you would like support or input from EMC on.
Just review it, and if you foresee a need for change or modification or addition, just let us know. And you could also participate in these upcoming public hearings as well. So we are going to be taking comments, but we try to make it as simple as possible. There's not really too many hard changes, but we're still struggling with the idea of revenue generation, because in some areas we are losing money. Especially, we allow certain small businesses to utilize the reload facility, but the county end up hauling that waste all the way from east to west at our cost. So there's some challenges. Definitely, we cannot change that, but we raised it a little bit to at least offset some minor costs. Maybe just cover the gasoline or diesel cost just to get us from east to west. But yeah, my recommendation is take the time to review it and comment. If you foresee need to add more stuff to the current admin rule, let us know.
I mean, is this where we weigh in on infrastructure for the subdivision?
This is just for solid waste.
Yeah.
This is for the current admin rule we updated.
Does that require a rule change?
No, these are the rules that are currently proposed.
Oh, I see, okay.
These are the proposed amendments to the solid waste division administrative rules. So our practice and procedure.
And we're currently in the public comment period for that.
Okay, well, I'll have to go back and look. Somehow I got it in my brain that there's got to be some kind of a rule change in terms of to create more transfer stations.
Well, as far as subdivisions, my discussion was when I first started with our housing and the planning, maybe you guys could propose that to the planning director next
I
meeting.
think that was the idea. Get the planning director.
Great.
We
Could-
can talk with Zeno about that when he shows
Yeah.
up.
So could you guys hear me?
Yes, Ramsey.
And as far as subdivisions, my recommendation would be, each subdivision could create their own designated collection areas like what you have in apartment complexes, where you have the 3 to 5 cubic yard bins that get collected once a week by a commercial hauler. So think about it, a lot of resorts, a lot of apartment complexes or apartment with home association, they have these collection areas within the subdivision itself. So maybe in a future subdivision, we need to make it a mandate where each new subdivision comes in, rather than demanding a transfer station expansion or building a new transfer station. Maybe we need to start controlling it within the source itself and have them create 20 by 10 enclosures within their subdivision, maybe 2 or 3 of them, where the future homeowners carry their garbage bag and put it in these 3 cubic yard or 5 cubic yard bins that they contract with somebody to go in there and pick it up and take it to the landfill. If it's recyclable, takes it to a recyclable entities. So that way it could assist us based on your earlier discussion about controlling the source and doing more diversion. Let's stop the bleeding by start planning smarter for the future and try to deal with the existing dilemma that we have. Otherwise, if we continue with the same practices, it's going to get worse and worse, because we need to stop the bleeding and start thinking creatively to start diverting away from the landfill. And if we control it at the source, if we make it a requirement for subdivision or developers to start doing that, that'll be the way to do it.
So let me,
That was my number 7 on my list of possible diversion things. I do not believe that that would be appropriate to initiate in these admin rules. I think we're talking about something that would have to come out of council and would involve zoning and building code and Lord knows who all. So this is just the narrow topic of the changes that they proposed to the administrative procedural rules, and not everything solid waste is doing.
Just to let you know, the planning department is going through their 2040 general plan amendment, and they've been having public meetings. It's burden on you guys to start participating and giving them recommendation, because they're gonna lay the ground rules for all these developments.
Yeah,
And
we
then they-
keep trying, Ramsey, and they keep bugging out of our meetings, so.
I know you have.
Each of you individually are welcome to comment on the zoning stuff. And also specifically trying to stay on agenda here, we've lost Melissa now. The item we're talking about are the specific proposed changes which bumped up some fees and cleaned up some language. Had a little confusing thing, and I don't even want to talk about feral animals. But there are fairly straightforward things that are in those proposed changes. And if nobody is ready to, or has a burning issue that we want EMC to deal with, I think you're kind of on your own boat. But Lee, you had a comment.
I just quickly sifted through what I could find for changes and noticed I didn't see anything about trailers and the changes recommended. Is that separate or different
What
than
do you
this?
mean by trailers?
As far as the trailers, we are doing the study. I have not received the final report from our consultant and our staff on the recommendation of which sites we gonna allow. It's different because the trailer already went before county council about last year sometime, under the admin rule. So, and I think we feel good the way the current admin rule is written as far as trailers, because it gave us the last amendment, we did it when we went back before council, for us to do the study and determine the locations that we could allow a trailer to come back. So we still under the study phase, and that's not gonna impact the current admin rules as it's modified.
So in other words, stay tuned. They may have some changes to make in the future. But not this.
Alright.
Well, no, we don't, because last year when we went before county council about the trailers, we set the parameter moving forward, so we don't need to come back and we don't. So it's we agreed how to move forward with the trailers when we did the addendum last time for the admin rule.
Okay, so the study is just going to inform which transfer stations and what changes to do?
Yes, and that'll be subject to the director report, so it doesn't have to go back to council because it's part of
Okay.
that.
All right, that kills item 833. So that's one less thing we need to deal with. So I'm not seeing anybody wanting to develop some formal comments from EMC on these changes. So you're on your own if you want to do it. Like I said, I sent in some individual ones, and you guys feel free to do it yourself. Okay, next up is item 7, which has been deferred a couple of months. We need to, or the query came up of whether or not the county could institute a point of sale advanced disposal fee on products purchased on island. We have a legal opinion on the issue, and in order to hear that legal opinion, we need to vote for an executive session.
Actually, Georgine, I think I'm okay right now. If commissioners want to ask questions, and if at that point I don't feel comfortable about answering them publicly, then we can move to executive session. But I think for purposes of discussion right now, it's okay to stay open.
Okay, great. Do you want to give us your conclusion? Has everybody had a chance
Yeah,
read
I was gonna ask if the commissioners had an opportunity to review it or if they needed a couple minutes to. It's only 5 pages, it's not very long. Or are we ready to go?
Are we okay to hear directly from Kira?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Seeing no objection.
Your question, can the public see these?
No.
No.
So I think what we would be asking is for your conclusion. Yes?
Yeah, so just briefly, a question came up about actually the county's authority to institute some sort of advanced disposal fee or point of sale, point of purchase type of fee, where the purchaser has to pay something. And the intent would be that fee would be used towards, one, diverting the waste away from the landfills, incentivizing people to recycle, be more aware of how they're disposing their products, and then also to create a funding mechanism for the county for solid waste. And so I did a little bit of research, and basically, in short, my opinion is that the county would be preempted at this point by state law to institute some sort of advanced disposal fee or ADF or point of sale fee. There are currently the HRS chapter 342G is sort of a comprehensive statutory scheme that includes different provisions regarding advanced disposal fee, for example, for glass containers. And within that provision, there's a statement that says the legislature has exclusive authority over the matters that are subject to this chapter. And so even if the county were to institute an ADF for other products besides glass containers, my review of the case law and of the applicable statutes, in conclusion, I'm finding that we are impliedly impliedly preempted from introducing our own ordinance to institute something like that in the county. If you look at chapter 342G-14, it sets forth the powers and duties of the Office of Solid Waste Management, and that is a division of the State Department of Health. That office is tasked with a number of things, but for purposes of this question, provision 6 states, assess the feasibility of employing disposal fees, including fees at the point of introduction or sale of any product that would require eventual disposition as solid waste as possible funding sources for waste management activities. So it's pretty clear in that provision that it's the responsibility of the Office of Solid Waste Management, which is a state entity, to assess the feasibility. And it makes sense because it would need to be implemented, I think, statewide at the level of the state, if it's going to be something that all the counties are going to have to do. And so I kind of set forth just additional reasoning and rationale for my conclusions, but happy to answer any questions. And if I feel that we're maybe getting into a point where I think that we should go into executive session, I'll recommend that. But at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions right now.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners? Rick?
Yeah, I wonder if whether or not it would be appropriate for the commission to suggest this option to the council and ask the council to request from the state legislative, the Hawaii County legislators to put this in their package to basically free up the counties to take on this responsibility.
I think that would be okay if the commission sends something to Ramsey as the director for DEM with a copy to the council. The thing is, and that's what I'm not aware of, is was there ever an assessment done? And if not, why? And if there wasn't one done, then one should get done so that all of the counties are aware or informed at least of whatever that assessment and the report would state. So I think if you folks want to do that, you can, the commission can send a correspondence to Ramsey with a copy to the council to do that. Also, I think that the commission can ask Ramsey to send a communication directly to the Office of Solid Waste Management under DOH and request that information as well. And you can copy council on that communication as well.
Thanks.
Just as an FYI, I mean, this has come up before.
Sorry, I can't hear you, John.
I say this question has come up before. And when we go off to the state level, our problem has always been Big Island, small population. And with the combination of the geographics of it and the head count, the rest of the other counties don't want to hear it because they're not having anything that looks anywhere near what our challenges are in terms of management, just the vastness of the area. And so getting the state legislature to weigh in on our issues as a separate, unless you could tie them into it somehow, they just basically don't want to hear it. I've been over this with Joy Buenaventura on a couple of occasions, and Russell when he was our state senator, and we've got to figure a way to get a hook in it, that they can't pitch.
Yeah, well, I think in order to start though, the Office of Solid Waste and Management, they have to do the assessment, and our county can request that happen. I mean, I don't think we need all the other counties to jump on board with that. I mean, we can move on our own, because at the end of the day, that's the power and responsibility of this office. And if they're not following through with it, then they should, or at least provide a reason for why not. But I do think that's the first step.
Well, I think again, the last time we tried working this through our elected, state representatives, Senate and House. And they either, as individuals, didn't want to hear it, or the ones that were somewhat interested weren't able to get any traction on it. So,
I hear you. Ramsey has a comment or question.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious if we are able to set up a tipping fees, why can't we be able to set up fees to recyclables and others come into the landfill? So can we maybe tackle it from that angle rather than the angle we try to tackle it through now? If you look at our tipping fee structures, to me, that's kind of similar to that type of structure. Can we expand into that to start charging or setting fees to what the commission tried to achieve? Just kind of curious, outside the box, but
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. My research just covered the advanced disposal fees and the point of purchase fee or point of sales fees. So maybe if that's something that the commission and DEM wants to consider, sure, you should probably look into that. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to it.
yeah, so don't call it point of sale, just call it point of discharge or disposal.
Well, I knew obviously, yeah, obviously you can change, just as you're doing in your current solid waste rules, you're upping the tipping fees. It would not be by product, it would be by load. And what your constraints are at increasing the fees you're currently charging is a separate issue.
Yeah, I mean, we need to, even because everything is going to be purchased eventually is going to make it to the landfill or recycling center. So the idea is, try to recoup the cost up front. Maybe we just call it disposal fees and set it up within the admin rule rather than, anything else. And I wonder if that could circumvent through all
Circumvent the state law.
Well,
you can call it whatever you want, but
he didn't say that.
We're already doing the tipping fees, right? Because
yeah, but that's at when you're discharging, right? I mean, when you're going to the landfill to dispose. My research covered when I'm going to purchase a product at the register, there's an additional fee that I have to pay for the purpose of disposing this later at the landfill or whatever it is. And that's where the difference comes in. If you're going to the landfill and disposing of it there, then that's separate, and that's different from if I go to the register as a consumer and I have to pay an extra added fee at the point I purchase the item.
But they already have it for white goods. They already have it for TV. They already have it for oil. They already have it for tires.
Yeah, which is state law, correct?
Right.
Right.
And if it's already state law, why can't we tap into the current state law? That's all I'm saying.
Well, we would have to go to the state. And
can we tap
that was
into the existing law?
The process that Kara was trying to explain is take this stepwise process to find out, has it been assessed? Is there some work that's already been done? Work it up to the DOH solid waste group. And then when they come back and say, we looked at it or we don't want to look at it, then we follow up and say, well, we think for these particular materials, it may make sense for a state ADF. But that's the process that we could go through. And then it would be identifying, okay, which things are we going to push for a state ADF?
Well,
Beyond
here's the
what's already
solution. I mean, we have a 21 transfer station. We don't collect tipping fees there. It's a solid waste facilities. If we get recyclables and stuff coming in, eventually, if we cannot catch it up front, we should be able to catch it at the TS, at the transfer stations.
Well, I would say that is a separate topic, and I'd be glad to agendize charging for transfer station activities. Is a whole interesting argument, and we could certainly have that at our next meeting. But for purposes of this item, I think the question at hand is, does the EMC want to follow the recommendations that Kara had in her memo on asking the question of whether or not assessments had been done at the state level, and then follow up with, depending on the answers? Or do we just let it lie and say, well, that idea probably isn't going to work at this time?
I would like to hear. I would like to know what they come back with.
Okay, so what I would like to ask is somebody willing to make a motion that we follow the recommendations in Kira's letter to write that inquiry?
I have a motion and a second.
But you can't do both, John. So a motion to do that, to follow what?
He's making the motion.
Oh, Deb.
Oh, I can't see your hand. Okay, Dell is making the motion to proceed with the recommendation that's in the memo that Kara wrote. And we have a second by John, or vice versa. That's up to you, Peter. Is there any further discussion?
If I could just, sorry, if I could just say something.
Sure.
I think for purposes of the motion, if somebody wants to take up doing a draft letter prior to the next meeting and then come prepared to have the other commissioners review it, so that by the next meeting, you know, there's a motion to adopt the contents of the letter and it can be sent off. It just expedites things versus, you know, coming back and having to wait for someone to draft the letter and then so on and so forth. But that's all I have to say.
All right, we have a motion and a second and a comment to just draft the letter. I don't know that we need a motion to draft a letter. We need a volunteer. I'll volunteer to draft the letter, and I'll bring it up at next meeting.
The only other comment I make, we don't want it to refer to it as a fee. I mean, because it is not a disposal fee in and of itself. I was trying to figure that out the other night because it's like the bottle bill, right? Basically, it's the same kind of a creature. It has a specific purpose, and that's its only purpose. Does that make sense?
Well, I think the language for glass bottles and for glass, non-high five, is advanced disposal fee.
It's not a tax, its only purpose is to cover just that.
Yeah, that's why it's a fee, advanced disposal fee.
Right.
So do we need to withdraw the motion, or do we want to vote on the motion?
You have to take a vote.
Is there still a motion on the floor, or is
Yes.
it being withdrawn?
I'm asking a question of those who first and seconded the
I vote
motion.
aye.
What? Do you want to withdraw it and I'll bring a draft of a letter we could send next time?
No, you can take a vote now, Georgine. This is Sherry. So there's a motion to basically adopt the recommendations that Kira had provided in her letter. So there was a second to that motion, and so the commission is going to vote whether or not we're going to proceed with that, and then you can volunteer to draft the letter to bring to the next meeting. Got it?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a vote on that. Do we proceed a la Kira's recommendation? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
That was opposed from Rick and Lee.
No, I think
No,
Negative,
that
I
was-
did not
that
oppose.
was
I'm in favor.
4.
Okay, you're just slow. Not too bad. All right, motion is passed, and see what I send out for next meeting.
6 ayes and 3 absent.
Okay, done with that one. Thank you very much, Kira, for coming
You.
through the recommendation. I'll be talking to you about this letter. Moving on to the report, the director's report. We've snuck in a lot of commentary already. Legislative update, number 1, is there anything burning that we need to support or unsupport? Ramsey.
I know you brought this earlier, the one about, trying to kind of eliminate any expansion of solid waste facilities. So we submitted testimony in opposition of that. And I believe, Georgianne, you did as well. The concept was, definitely subtitle D, based on federal rules, was enacted in accordance to the Clean Water Act. And nowadays, technologies do exist to allow for better design of these landfill. And you could line them, you could have a monitoring system to be able to evaluate any potential. To be able to evaluate any potential possible contamination. So I feel good about the design, how you design these landfills myself for the last 30, 40 years. So I'm very, very knowledgeable of what a landfill design consists of, and it takes. I did a world-renowned research on the closure of these type of liners that is utilized for the bottom liner and the closure liner, bottom and top of liners, to prevent any water or leachate from percolating through and making it to the groundwater. So there's good design criteria do exist, and monitoring systems and what have you that could prevent any concern of any possibility of leach with high VOCs making it to the groundwater levels. So that's the reason we opposed what they recommended. I understand the reason behind it because of the Red Hills water contamination. But our landfills become very ramification to that bill could definitely hinder the county as a whole when it comes to the solid waste operations. So so that was the one kind of required some quick, immediate attention from our side. I heard also, as far as possibly, you guys know that Edge Power may have some capacity. There must be misconception there, probably from understanding what's going on. I had personally met with the director of ENV and city and county, and we had a great discussion about the possibility of taking our waste to offset their shortage but my understanding, they really didn't have that much shortage. So I know I keep hearing that, city and county is getting penalized because they don't have enough capacity in feedstock. Based on what I heard, that may not be a true statement. They were in the process of upgrading their boiler, so they just spend about $380 million approximately to upgrade their boiler to become more efficient and to have better air emissions. But there is also interest, in continue communicating with them. So maybe a legislation need to be passed or presented to recommend that Edge Power maybe need to be a statewide facility, especially based on what the current bill that we opposed may lead to that eventually. So we opposed it, but I think eventually if it goes through, it may lead to Edge Power being the only facility in the state that could still function for the solid waste facility. So these are the things I think we need to start communicating to legislation to take our ideas and maybe see if they could pass it through in legislation. And that's my role, is to continue providing these type of possible policy making decisions that somebody will be willing to take it on and carry it all the way to legislation. So yeah, because it's, with the idea of going to zero waste, with the idea of 7323, with the idea of this bill coming in to assist city and county, we need to jump ahead of everything else and figure out what does our county need. And we need to, even though with our population is not as bad as Oahu and Maui, but hopefully the louder we talk, maybe we get more attention. I don't know. I'll leave it up to our legislative bodies to be able to, if they're willing to take on these bills and present it.
Chris, you had some comment?
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate what Ramsey was talking. So when I was Assistant Chief of Environmental Quality for CCH, bringing in other counties' waste was the thing we looked at, but the current rules of Honolulu preclude them accepting waste from other localities. So yeah, there are going to be some hoops to jump through. There'll be a public comment period. So I agree with Ramsey, it's possible, but yeah, I can't reiterate enough the difficulties with making that happen. There's going to be a long lead time.
Yeah, you're right. And I think we ought to, if that's the intent of us moving towards zero waste, and moving through that 7323, we better start taking actions and taking that route and defeating these roadblocks. But Chris is right. Our county, we don't have that hindrance. Our county could export waste. We could do it tomorrow, but the city and county cannot take it. So they need to change their codes. And they need to get the buy-off. And given where they at currently, where they're going to close their current landfill by 2028, they haven't cited a new landfill. And now somebody else presenting this bill where they cannot actually do any landfill because of the groundwater issues. So they're going to be stuck. They're probably going to come back to us and say, all right, could you guys take our ash and we take your waste? And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Lee, you have comment?
Yeah, I sort of looked at all this a while back and asked Sina about it before she left. And other than the city law banning taking waste from the other islands, from what I understood, the biggest hurdle was the cost of moving it, or the H Power accepting it, I think it was 2018 or 19, they gave a quote of how much it would cost. And I don't remember, I didn't save it, but I just did some rough math. Like I took all the waste for a month that the county generated from the landfill transfer stations and just figured it out. And it would take the annual operating budget of a year for the DEM just to do, 1 month, send it all over. I know doesn't work that way, but I'm just saying it was so expensive, it was cost prohibitive. That's why they would need to build a facility here on the island rather than ship it to Oahu. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to afford it. So I think that's the biggest issue.
Well, that may be true, but you need to keep in mind, the cost of landfilling is not as cheap as either. City and county, they're looking over $200 million just to buy property and to go through the siting process. So, and the annual operation cost was not even included. So, for barging waste from here to Oahu, either you do the upfront capital investment and you buy the barge system, or you make a deal with Young Brothers at a certain rates that they could haul that waste because their containers are empty anyway. Some of the containers come back empty, some of them goes to Oahu empty. So, and the way you process that, you wrap the waste with a plastic waterproof plastic, put them in a container. The plastic give you high BTU when it's burned under this new boiler system that the city and county installed, which give you a tier 4 system, very, very low in any type of emissions. So, but, these are ideas, but we are being faced with a challenge statewide, but there's no mandates. But if these bills become mandates where you have to be zero waste by 2040, or where you cannot do landfill or expansion, or you cannot, build a new landfill, that become a problem. Then what is the solution? The only solution is currently if city and county cannot site a landfill, they cannot build a landfill, they're running out of time because they only got 5 years to close that landfill they currently have. And if they end up closing it, what are they going to do with the ash that they generate? So there's going to bring a lot of issues to the whole state. I think there was a bill coming from the state to allow, I forgot the bill number, to allow creating a committee for the state from each county to discuss more in detail the needs, similar to what they did on the cesspool conversion committee. So the idea is to create a committee within different counties within the state to address these type of issues. And I believe we supported that bill because it kind of makes sense. It's really not a county issue, it's a state issue that need to be addressed. Because we don't have mandates, our population is different, but a direction from the state may allow us to even fund it as we move forward.
Chris, you had a comment?
Well, I wanted to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Dell, we talked about it before, about acquiring land, maybe from the Dell, state or county for a new landfill. Anything further on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the questions. The voice was so far away.
And we talked about maybe acquiring or looking to acquire land from the Department of Foreign Homes, county or state, any land that they could help us get to at least help us with this.
If I can put your question off, that is our item 834. So we'll come back to
We're
that.
talking about landfill, yeah.
No, it's on the agenda, a couple items down, so if you can hold that thought. Chris, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I like that. I just love that Lee is doing back of the envelope calculations. And I would ask that when you have an inkling to do something like that, let Ramsey know so he can get us working on it as well. Because as Ramsey points out, yeah, you got to buy the land for a landfill, then you got to excavate it, you got to manage getting the waste in, and then after it's full and it's closed, you still have to maintain it basically forever. So it might stand a little more detailed analysis, especially in the long-term cost, to see if it makes sense. But yeah, we need those ideas.
Yeah, certainly looking at total cost and what is the best option, again, within life cycle considerations of where the true costs really lie is critical. Are there any other legislative issues that we should be looking at? Again, items have been sent out, and you're obviously welcome as citizens to look at what the state's up to. You know, in particular, Ramsey, as well as I did, send in these comments about basically prohibiting any new landfill or expansion of any facilities, which would capture our transfer stations, by the way, if it's over an aquifer and the entire island of Hawaii is identified as being under an aquifer. Most of Oahu, but all of Hawaii County, which was rather interesting. So just be aware, stuff's happening and moving, and we need to make sure if we need to make comment that we get that in. Lee, did you have a follow-up?
I just had a question if y'all had considered sending our trash somewhere on the mainland rather than just another portion of Hawaii.
I mean, that'll be a longer haul, of course. I mean, we're talking about, you know, the shorter you carry the waste on water, the better. I mean, definitely, then the cost will quadruple. I mean, you know, yeah, you don't want to end up taking it to California or somewhere else, become very expensive. Oahu is so nearby, and we already have ships, and we have ports that gets daily activities. You know, between the west side and the east side, Hilo has its own port. The west side have its own port that have activities to Oahu every day. So, and it's shorter distance. So the idea is it possible? It is, and I hope if legislators are willing to take on that challenge, especially if some city and county, to adjust or modify their codes to allow inner islands waste acceptance, that would resolve the whole issue. And plus, they're going to generate energy. We may get benefit out of that as well as a credit, or we may get it as revenue coming to the county. So that's going to lead to your question. That's going to offset the cost, because, you know, instead of providing electricity for 70,000 homes, you could provide electricity for 300,000 homes, you know. So the idea is energy comes at a cost that County of Hawaii could benefit from as well as a cost revenue offset. So definitely has potential. But, you know, I've been preaching this, but I hope somebody will listen out there from legislation point of view. Laura, when you were a senator, you and I talked about this as well, if you recall. So yeah, to me is I think, especially nowadays with everybody's thoughts of what's going on with Red Hills and what's going on with landfilling and leash it and everything else, maybe this is the time to start introducing these type of bills. And with the zero waste concept, with the resolution 7323 concepts. So if the majority of the people want us to get outside that landfill business, landfilling, let's find an alternative. And the current alternative we have is edge power for the whole state. That could be a win-win. So there's my
I will
2 cents worth
guarantee
of-
you that when I send back the landfill or the ordinance ideas, I'll focus on the landfill ban and the pros and cons involved, and I'll work H power as well as this biochar, blah, blah, as part of the options, or at least identify issues. So stay tuned for an issues paper coming next time. I'd like to move us along because it's getting late. We have, and I think you have to disappear, Ramsey. The budget is coming up. When you have to present it in May?
No, I thought April, the first week in April, Peter could tell me the date, but I think
Oh, okay.
Peter, is it April or May?
April 13th at 1:30 p.m. is the DEM presentation to the special committee of the special meeting of the finance committee in Hilo.
So that's coming up in 2 to 3 weeks. So stay tuned, and hopefully you could log in and watch the presentation as well. But yeah, that's as far as the budget.
Okay, again, it's an issue of, is there something that EMC should be in there helping to argue for or dissing, however we may feel about it.
I could tell you, we requested positions. Unfortunately, all of our positions were declined by the administration. And it's gonna tie our hand even further to get things accomplished. And I think I see that as a hindrance.
Is that something that the council can override?
Yes, as they review the new budget, they could override and send it back with a recommendation.
And then probably will.
Okay, moving along to item 8.3, solid waste division projects and updates. I don't know if Craig or Ramsey wanted to talk about that. We have already talked about the trailer issue, so we know that's coming up.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Just wanted to add that the new manufactured funded e-waste program is doing really well. A lot of e-waste is coming in. There's a permanent site in Hilo, and Kona is still a once-a-month event.
Where's the permanent site?
So the e-waste is one, or e-waste you said, is once a month in Kona?
Yeah, once a month, yeah, event.
Great.
Where is
And
the
then permanent site at Mr. Case in Hilo?
Yeah.
Great. Del, did you have a question or comment?
No, Laura did.
No, I was just asking where,
Sorry.
I was just asking where the permanent site was, but I assumed it was Mr. Case, but thank you. Got it.
Okay.
It is Mr. K, and yesterday, I don't know if you all watched Hawaii News Now. They had a small few minutes about the e-waste. And it seemed like it has its own benefit, but also they pointed out that because the cost is going to be bared by the manufacturers, and now the amount of electronic waste is being shipped because they're going to be reimbursed by pound based on how many pounds. That's going to wait. So there's the fear that definitely now we're gonna pay more for these e-waste as we purchase them because that cost is gonna pass into us. But it also provides for daily service. So my understanding, at least maybe city and county, not here, but with the idea of the counties and cities not gonna pay for it, then anybody could take their e-waste every day of the week because now it's a business. So Mr. K and others within the state, that's their business. They get it from you and they package it and they submit in the weight to these manufacturers and they get money back. So for them is the more you give them, the more money they make. So it's a it's a business. It's going to generate revenue for the counties, for the private businesses, but so it was taken away from government entities and given to private entities. So yeah, that's the reason most of them, they kind of open daily because that's how they're going to make money. But I think what Craig is saying is once a month, because Mr. K is still, I think, has not cited a location on the west side. He's working with the planning department on getting a location.
Well, I think we've certainly been supportive of encouraging private recyclers to get more stuff, and having them paid by the manufacturers is sweet. But I agree with you that we'll probably see it in the price. Everything costs at least $1 more on Big Island. Life cycle analysis study. Is it releasable?
So it's still being reviewed.
Okay, it'll keep being on the agenda. We talked about 3 on the trailers. Any new news on curbside collection, new landfill siting? They were identified last time as the next studies.
Yeah, we were going to capture some of the money that's set aside this year to secure a consultant to start looking into that. I need to sit down with Gene and Mike Kaha maybe sometime next week and figure out where we at on the selection process, and try to understand because there is during that Mauna Loa eruption, we all recognize that one landfill is not going to cut it, and that's, I think, the whole question came earlier of, we need to site a landfill on the east side, and maybe the Department of Hawaiian Homeland or DLNR will be willing to give us the land. But you guys all need to know, we're going to have an uphill battle as well from environmental. It could go either way because it's just the land preservation and the historic land issues, and people don't want a landfill anymore. We know that, but yet we have to have a place. So it's not going to be easy ride, but I think probably it would be the best decision we could ever make to have another landfill siting on the east side, just to avoid the mishaps, because we do live in an area that potentially we could have blockage between east and west from, roadway aspect of things. The Saddle Road could be shut down and services would be interrupted and what have you. So if it's not to Edge Power, it's definitely need to have its own landfill. So hopefully we could continue focusing on doing the study and getting the consultant selection as well.
Good.
But the challenge of that bill passes, that's going to be before Senator Tarnas. If it passes, that's going to put the kibosh on this siting. So it's going to kill the whole idea of having a landfill on the east side.
Well, hopefully they'll recognize what they're walking us into. Like to move to item 4, wastewater.
Question here.
Georgie, just a quick.
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Under the next studies on curbside collection, can I have more information as to what this entails, besides curbside? You know, how do they propose to do that, or? kind
Well,
of-
the idea to lay out operational options, is a curbside better fit for our county than having these 21 transfer stations? Would it reduce the amount of waste? Would it allow for better diversion? Would it allow for control at the source point? So now residents will be very cognizant of what they need to throw, what they need to recycle. So what you do, you provide the 3 container, the green, brown, and blue, and you pick them up once a week for each individual container. But yeah, that will put the user into a mood of, all right, now I'm gonna limit my waste to 1 container once a week. I'm gonna do more recycling. I want to be able to purchase less so I don't waste more. So all that type of mentality and behavior could be eventually changed and reprogrammed by that type of collection, curbside collection.
I think
So
that's,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned it the last time because, in California, in Clovis, they do that and they're so on it. I mean, and it's so efficient. But because Hilo is so big, the curbside collection, would that be looking to private partners? Or is the county actually going to try and do that? Or are we going to just do it by districts in Hilo? Because it's a big county.
It's a challenge. It's gonna be done because of the Kuna decision. It's probably gonna be done by public servant because city and county already does it with public servants. So we cannot privatize that. So under the Kuna decision, it has to be done. If it's a county money involved, it'll have to be converted to public servant services. But that also is gonna disadvantage the current garbage haulers, and that's also a challenge. So it's nothing easy on this island. Everything has to be threaded carefully. And yeah, the idea of even this considered as an option is going to disadvantage the currently private operators. So it's you doom if you do and you doom if you don't, but we have to look at the study.
Well, and I think that's certainly a role for EMC. I was on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and the recommendation to look at where curbside makes sense and how to get it accomplished was a high recommendation. And we'll have the opportunity to evaluate it and to advocate for legislative changes where we need to. I understand that the mayor's office is also looking into how we can work with the Kono decision to make it less binding than it appears to be. I would like to next move again to wastewater. Any new and exciting, challenging things you'd like us to know about Pahala and Alehu? Are we tracking online, Kelly?
Yes, Pahala and Alehu AOC project is in compliance with all the AOC deadlines. We held our public outreach meeting in February. The draft Pahala preliminary and engineering report was completed and reviewed by the county. We're currently developing the environmental information document, request for proposal, and we're negotiating the Nalehu preliminary engineering report contract. We're looking in the management models for all of our feasible wastewater options.
And we're developing a memorandum of agreement with SHPD and the Department of Health to streamline how we're going to submit, such a large scale conversion to the State Historic Preservation Review. On deck for that project, we are going to review comments with our contractor Friday on the Pahala PER. The final PER is due to EPA coming up in May 6th. We have our April quarterly EPA meeting. And then after that, we have to submit the environmental information document 180 days after the approval of the PER by EPA. And then we get to work on the cesspool closure implementation plan, which has to be completed 30 days after the approval of the information document. That's what I have for Pahala.
Everything's moving along according to schedule. You are not going to slip because of the lack of positions being filled. And again, looking for things, is there something EMC needs to do or support to make sure that all stays on schedule?
I'll let Ramsey answer that question. I think we're on schedule. We're going to stay on schedule. We do have, me, Chris, Mark, Brenda working on that project, Ramsey working on that project, but we're also working on all the projects. So it's a load.
Oh, very much appreciated. I don't know, Lee, have you heard any comments, positive or negative, from public meetings?
No, everyone's just wondering what they're gonna have to do. I guess the one thing they're wondering is, will it be at least for Pahala, if the county decide if you're gonna go with one system or if you're gonna go with the individual systems?
That is probably will be revealed once the preliminary engineering report submitted to us. We cannot predetermine prior to the facts, so we're waiting on the study. Once the study is completed, we'll figure out the best direction for that community and the county. So the study's preliminary engineering report is looking at that option of, they're looking at 3 options. Definitely either a package unit or IWS's or low pressure system type of design. So they're looking into it. Once we get the report, we'll let you guys know what's the best option to choose. And once that's determined, then we're going to start following the environmental assessment and everything else that comes with that preferred option.
Do you have like a rough date of when you think you might have that done?
Kelly, I think we have a milestone for that.
Yeah, so the completion of the PER is May 6th. That's the final.
So that's near you. So it's coming near you within a month. So hopefully by May EMC meeting, we could share that with you.
Okay.
So Georgiana, to answer your question about staffing, yes, if anybody knows of engineers looking for positions and project managers, construction managers, please let them know. Put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your website if you have a website, but put the word out for us. Anything you could do to assist us widen the recruitment process would be greatly appreciated.
So I just backing up then, I understand you lost your solid waste division chief?
That is correct.
Anybody in the hopper?
We have not yet opened recruitment. I need to look at the job description and also maybe do some modification to be able to secure a candidate that full knowledge of the solid waste, from also constructability, operation, and design. And so yeah, I'm looking at some modification to the current job description as well.
Okay. West Hawaii wastewater projects. And maybe include in that the I've forgotten the name of it, that place down on Lee Drive. Kalua Bay.
Yeah, that goes back to, I guess there's current wastewater project that Kelly could address based on the current schedule we have for some of these West Hawaii projects. I know we have the Kalakahe odor control sand filter headworks that is under a contract with a consultant to do the design. That kind of put us into the R1 at Kalakahe as well once we complete that R1 structure. I don't know if I have shared the vision for that Kalakahe treatment plan with you, the commission, yet. We may have talked about it in the past, but we inherited a site that consists of, old treatment tap system, eroded lagoon, and it is also tying our hand from maintenance because it's under the fishing game for bird habitat conservation for endangered species and what have you. So I have been working with our consultant, Corolla Engineering, with the idea of Department of Health hopefully allows us to do a pilot program to bring a mobile unit on the site to allow for this learning and education of cesspool conversion.
Oh, you did tell us about making it into a real information park and facility to look at things. Are you moving anywhere with it, getting money to accomplish any of that? Or is that what you're saying?
I think that's why I'm bringing it, because probably you guys as a commission also, maybe we need to do more of, definitely we get in the money to do the mobile. My take, if we do that, that ecosystem facility to allow for bird watching and allow for native Hawaiian planting, to utilize that R1, what have you, that will be a good facility for the county, become revenue generation because it become a tourist spot. So the idea is, yeah, as a commission, I don't know if you guys thought about it more, any advices, any pros and cons, any bush it through maybe, because we could start talking to county council members and since it is a budget season, to me we need to capture what we inherited and convert it to a moneymaker, revenue generation type of area, because we cannot be sustainable based on the current situation we have. So, but there is a lot of demand to get the R1 going, and so it could be a win-win for the entire community and the entire state, because we'll be the only one in the whole state, and potentially, though, to be honest with you, it could be the world, because if we put a floating solar system over our reservoir to extract energy as it floats over the reservoir to prevent algae from building up. And that energy could feed the blowers and the facilities, and yet generate R1 to be able to create gardening and native Hawaiian plants that could benefit the community as well, and create a bird watching location. What a better ecosystem can anybody ask for, better than this one? So, but yeah, it takes creativity, it takes money, and it takes effort. So, but I think it could put a good twist for the county to put the county of Hawaii on the map when it comes to eco facilities utilization.
Intriguing ideas. I think I would encourage everybody to think about how we could contribute and connect with other organizations to make that happen. Sounds cool. My husband's a bird watcher, so he'd love it. Are there specific plans for that area down in Kona? For the bay?
As far as I know, there is a lot of cesspools. I heard the testimony earlier, and we have been working with them and Bobby Command. I got a lot of emails as well. But remember, the entire Kailua Kona area is considered as priority number 1 based on the state reporting. So everybody's gonna say, I only got 1 mile away from my sewer. And that's true for the whole service area. So
Yeah.
it's the idea of doing that cesspool conversion master plan could allow us to create that countywide district. Because even if we go and said, okay, let's set aside $250,000 for an environmental study for 1 mile sewer, the next community is going to say, well, we only have half a mile, and we got cesspool conversion. Some others are going to say we have. So we cannot pick and choose. Our intent here as a county is to be able to provide solutions for all of our constituents. It's an issue that potentially is going to impact the entire priority number 1 area. So how could we present solutions to all the constituents within these service areas? And that's what I was talking about earlier, is to talk about that.
Well, the EMC is already on record as we want to see integrated wastewater plans. So go for it and do that. And I don't want you to be killed by 1,000 cuts. Rick, you had a comment.
Yeah, I want to go back one. I raised my hand right at the end there with regard to the Ramsey's big idea for Kealakekee. I want to add a piece to that, Ramsey, and that is pumped hydro power generation using the current 1.8 million gallons per day of wastewater that's coming out the back end of the plant. The requirements to do that are big. We need 600 feet of vertical rise and enough space for a reservoir or tank storage for that amount of water. But it's eminently doable, and it'll produce a significant amount of power. And it's the kind of power that the PUC wants to see, because it'll fill in those gaps between when the sun goes down and we lose all of our solar power on the island. It'll also fill gaps when the wind's not blowing and we're not getting any wind generated power also. The great thing about pumped hydro is that you can literally switch it on momentarily. So the moment that the power generating company, Helco, needs the additional power, they flip a switch, they've got the power. It also eliminates the needs for batteries. So, and the reason that I'm suggesting this is because we do have an expert on the subject on island, and I've been talking with him at great length. I'm also aware that Senator Schatz is looking for a large environmental idea in Hawaii to fund using IFR monies. So, end of that subject. I'll leave you with that. This is my last meeting, so but I'm here for that idea. And Ramsey, I'm happy to sit down with you anytime and talk about it, introduce you to Richard Horn, who has developed hydropower all over the planet and is quite knowledgeable on the subject, and I've discussed it with him. So Anyway, moving on. I'm sorry that Debbie wasn't able to stay. But I just wanted to let the commission know that there is a small group of people that have been working toward a possible solution to the environmental issues that Debbie's pointing out for the Kahaluu area. The one thing that I wanted to put on the record was that what Debbie's suggesting is only the coastal homes be sewered, and what our small group is doing is looking at all of the cesspools that are upstream, uphill, essentially from Kahaluu Bay. And that is roughly 300 homes. And it includes one ATU with an injection well that's right across the street from Kahaluu Bay. So it's a big project. It's we are on the way toward creating a or trying to create the improvement district that's necessary to get this done. We have part of the all of the questions are currently in front of Corp Council. So this project is well along its way, and I essentially see it merging. One specific question I have for Ramsey that I think we've discussed before, but I don't remember the answer. Has there been a determination made as to the capacity of the Queen Kalama connection? Would it have the capacity for 300 homes?
I don't think that determination has been made. That's the hydraulics I was talking about earlier that we need to do as part of that cesspool conversion master plan. Because we have to look at the hydraulics for the current existing system, the pipe sizing, and figure out how much capacity.
Right.
So that's in the work. It has not been started, but our intent, yes, to start evaluating the collection system and figure out what type of improvement we need to do to be able to serve, the cesspool conversions. And I'm very aware of that 300 homes, Rick, that you're talking about. And you're right. They, and we also met with Hawaii Water as well, because they have that treatment plant at the Sheraton Hotel. And they were also they were entertaining the idea of, yeah, we're willing to take that 330 homes, but who's gonna enforce connections? And that was their concern. If they put the capital cost, what guarantees them that the 330 homes is gonna connect? So there was that discussion as well. So there's a lot of balls in the air from all aspects of things, but Rick, I'll take you into that invite. I definitely would like to sit down with you and meet with Richard and understand the pump hydro capabilities. Did you say 600 feet vertically?
Yes.
Wow, that's about 260 PSI of pressure. So that I'm kind of curious from an engineering point of view. When you said 600, my brain went into conversion mode into BSI, and I like to sit down with Richard and talk about it more.
Well, I have to say, the only thing I was encouraged about the discussion about resolution 7323 was the openness to try new things, to be innovative technologically, look at some of the new opportunities that are out there. So from the council. So I think exploring how we could turn that area into eco park land and try out some of the latest technologies, get out of the same old that we get stuck in on this island. I think it's great. So ideas keep coming in.
Can I just say one more thing in closing with going back to Kahaluu? Ramsey, you're correct. We also recognize the potential opportunity of sewering these 300 odd homes that are uphill from Kahaluu and moving that to Hawaii Water Company. So there's two options here, and the legal question about whether or not that kind of specific public-private partnership is possible in this case has been presented to Corp Counsel. So that's on their desk. And just for the record, one of the people that is engaged in the process our small group is working on is a retired planner from the county planning department. And he's worked both in the public sector and the private sector, and he understands each step of the process. Roy Takayama is his name. He's retired now, and he's working on this project for free because he believes in it, and he believes that it's essential, and it's the kind of solution that we need to be able to move forward. So it's exciting stuff, and we may end up be slapped down the road, but we believe that this solution is essential. As Debbie said, to the health of our community. She's not the only one that's had staff and MRSA and other issues at Kahaluu. Anyway, that's my legacy is to keep working on some of this stuff. And just for the record, I haven't given up on sewering Honokahau either. It's just gotten a whole lot harder with the loss of Jay Nickerson.
Kelly, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing about the wastewater plans, specifically the Puna preliminary environmental impact statement that's going to be filed with the State Environmental Review Program coming up here in April 23rd. And you might want to write down the dates. There's a 45-day comment period between April 23rd and June 7th. And so you can go to the DEM's website, look for the wastewater division, look for the link for that specific project, and they'll take you to the project website, and there's a form where you can, a link where you can submit your comments directly.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Agenda. All right. Any other comments about wastewater plans, DEM? Hearing none. Number 5, the partnerships and private wastewater treatment companies. Ramsey talked about that somewhat. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add. I think, again, this group has shown we are very supportive of looking at private partnerships and how to make that happen. It's ridiculous to let resources lie that we could take advantage of. Chris?
So to that effort, we are compiling a list of private treatment works that are on the island using various state databases. They're surprisingly not comprehensive. So we're in the process of getting that all together in the context of the pre-treatment program. So we want to let them know that, hey, we do have a pre-treatment program started. We need to know what kind of waste you're collecting. What do you do with the effluent water and the sludge that's produced? So we'll have that database developed shortly here in the next couple of weeks, and we can start contact, and try to, one of the goals here is to work together. I forgot who brought it up, but we get these requests periodically from planning on, hey, should this lot be connected to sewer? And a lot of times we don't have any assets in the area, but if we knew that Waikoloa Water or whoever does, then we can forward it on to them.
Rick, you had a comment?
Yeah, quick question, Chris. Is your research including looking at all of the state facilities and the federal facilities on the island as well?
Yes, all of the, sorry, not just the private, but also the state and federal ones as well.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the intent, everybody need to comply with the pre-treatment requirement. Doesn't matter if
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
you are a government or you know, business, or everybody has to comply.
Everybody has to comply, correct?
Laura, did I see your hand up?
No,
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
Georgianne, just I think we skipped Hilo waste treatment plant upgrades. I know
yeah, sorry.
I heard some testimony earlier from the Sierra Club. I really appreciate what the Sierra Club does and continue on doing. And they are a major part of us staying on track to provide environmental protection to our island. So I really appreciate their involvement. And just to give you update, phase 1 is already out to bid, and we should be able to receive bids probably sometime mid-April. So we'll get an idea of how much the bidding on that phase 1 is going to come into, and we're projected to break ground by June. Just to keep an idea, also, these wastewater treatment plant within the fencing area is already exempted. It's already permitted. It already has its own EA. The prior EA allowed for even the expansion of that facility as well. But we are being transparent, and that's why we're gonna do it in phase 2 as well, even though we may not be mandated because of the exemption clause within the current 343 that allows us to do so. But we took it up on ourselves, so yes, we'll spend the money and we'll go through the environmental assessment for phase 2 to cover both of them. But given the catastrophic condition of phase 1, we feel very comfortable with the exemption requirement within the EA. So that's why we're moving forward with it. But yeah, it's a great project. We were able to finish it, like I was stating earlier, within less than 1 year. Kudos to our consultant, Corolla Engineering, and his staff, their staff, and our staff that worked all day, all night just to get this project done within 8 months from the minute we signed the authorization, which is, it's amazing. But yeah, this is one step toward the right direction. We conquered, now we're gonna deliver. So it's a great.
It's great. I have to say, I've been scared since I moved here about the decrepit nature of what our wastewater treatment was on that site. The comment in the testimony was that you were putting in ancient repairs. That's not true, is it? I assume you're not redesigning the whole facility in this phase 1, but that you are fixing what's broken. But do you feel like it's going to bind you or cost double when you get to phase 2?
Well, it's what we inherited. You all know what we inherited. We inherited headwork that was going to collapse. We inherited digesters are not functioning. So what we're doing is we need to go in there and fix the current system. To fix the current system, we replacing the headworks and we doing new digesters and what have you. These not old technologies. These technologies gonna exist forever because these are the preliminary treatment that you require to have headwork. We got a great equipment that could minimize the amount of solids, grits removals and snail removals. So we use any new technologies to give us a better treatment and better removal of, the solids that are hindrance to our pumps and motors and what have you. So, and we doing that. So phase 2, we're gonna be based on the bidding of phase 1. Phase 2 may require us to spend additional $20 million maybe to upgrade it to a better secondary treatment, because the biotrickling filters is old technology, and I agree. And I don't want to add another biotrickling filter myself. I won't recommend it. And we entertain, it depends on how the cost of phase 1 comes in, is going to drive the decision making on phase 2 secondary treatment.
Well, I think the bottom line, and one that you're showing yourself to be quite capable of, is we have to fix it now before it catastrophically fails. Then we're going to be, well, deep doo-doo, literally. So thank you for that. Again, I just wanted to double check if there were any additional comments on item 5 about private-public partnerships. I'll take that as a no. If there is, bring it back next time. Item 9, future agenda items, as always. If you've got something you want us to cover, get back to it. I've got a laundry list of items that I'm going to do. We had the 2 speakers who didn't show up, so we'll ask them again next time. And I'll come up with a revised potential landfill diversion options paper for you. And we'll talk about, maybe work with Ramsey on some ideas of how to talk about this option of a countywide sewer area. And I want to bring back up the resource recovery park concept. And if there's anything else you guys want, or if I've dropped it, Peter will catch me when we do the minutes. But again, you're welcome. Certainly, Laura, if you've got some burning issues you'd like to handle, just let me know. Announcements, the next meeting will be April 25th in Hilo and on Zoom. Anything else I've missed?
Well, I was just wondering, before we finished up on the wastewater over here, is there any chance that they're actually going to complete it as it was designed? In other words, delivering some of that R2 water to Park and.
You're talking Hilo?
No, talking about here, Kona.
Oh, Puna? Okay.
Yeah.
Kona.
Kona.
Kona. Oh, ears are dropping.
Are you talking about Kona when we finish the potential sand filter and the eco facility, or are you talking about currently as we stand?
January.
Can you repeat the question? Say again, Ramsey.
Are you talking about the Kona side as we implement the eco facility concept, or as we currently stand?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to vision what was originally visioned that water to go to. The R2 water.
It's not the R2 water. It was envisioned to be R1 to go across the street for that regional park.
Right.
So it was intended to be R1, and that's the project that was going to cost the county $168 million, if you recall. It was not R2, so it was R1 projection.
Okay.
Because currently we have R2.
Yeah, that's what of course, that was part of as it was originally laid out, it was supposed to be only taken to R2, and then it would have been used in basically beautification projects for the park. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Department of Health utilizing R2 water, it's more restrictive, especially for regional parks. It has to be, subsurface, it has to be buried underground.
Yeah.
for it to irrigate trees and what have you. So they have different restrictions
Mhm.
that are on water because it's still not it's not filtered.
Right.
I have one quick question.
One
Del,
One
what's
quick-
that?
One quick question. With the phase one going up for bid now, and I don't know what's in it or in phase two either, but is there any, anything with like a generator or backup power source, introduced with these? Because every time the power goes down, there's leakage in Kilcaha. So I was just wondering, when you're doing this whole plan, does it include a backup power source?
Well, actually, good question. Actually, we just got extra 8 generators through FEMA. So we are mandated to have secondary power for our facility because it runs 24/7. So we never had outage where we didn't have generators. So I don't know the situation that you brought up, but it's a mandate under our permit because it's health and safety issues. All of our facilities mandated to have a secondary power source.
The only reason I raised that was because when they had the leakage in Wyoming Avenue. And part of what the news had published too several times was when the power went out, it just stopped. And so all the leakage went through. So I don't know. That's the only.
Yeah, maybe Chris Loud is here I have not heard of that. It could be a switch malfunction, but all of our facility, by law, we have to have generators.
I would have thought so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we had a couple of recent incidents where we had equipment malfunctions that resulted in discharge of incompletely treated wastewater. One of them was a disinfection pump went offline, and there was another one with a power. I'd have to look through the records, but yeah, the plant continues to run. We have backup power generation, but so it's not a question of, hey, there's no power and everything's shut down. It's a question of individual components within the plant stop working because of mechanical breakdowns.
Thank you.
Yeah. And happy to talk offline on that. Communication's good.
Thank you. Are there any last comments? Again, send me your thoughts on future agenda items. I'll be putting together some information like I volunteered for, including the request on the advanced disposal fees. Otherwise, again, I would like to thank Rick for all his passion and ideas and the offline work that he does in the area. I'm glad to hear you're not gonna ignore us, that you will be in touch. So I appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, do I see a hand over in Kona? Oh, it's a clap. It's a clap. Yeah, thank you so much, Rick.
Georgiana, I kind of missed out on the virtual luncheon go away for Rick. We could have had a virtual luncheon party for. Now COVID is out of the question. We should. Rick, give me a call. You and I will go to lunch.
There's a deal. Can I get a motion to adjourn, guys?
So moved.
Chair, who do you recognize? Motion?
Who do I recognize? Well, I don't know, Lee and Rick.
And so the second is
Rick.
Rick.
No,
No.
Lee is the second. It's my
I'm the
last
second.
meeting. I called the adjournment.
Okay. Adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Forget it. Go home, go to the bathroom and get some lunch. It's lunchtime. Any rate, thank you very much. Great meeting, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.